The dining room was filled with the warm, comforting aromas of a traditional Thanksgiving feast. Roasted turkey glistening with butter, creamy mashed potatoes piled high, rich gravy simmering in its boat, and the sweet scent of cinnamon-spiced pumpkin and sweet potato pies cooling on the sideboard. Crystal glasses clinked softly as family members passed dishes around the long mahogany table, adorned with Nana Adonia's finest china and silverware that she had brought back from her years abroad. Laughter and light conversation had filled the air just moments ago. Stories of old, family holidays, updates on jobs and travels, the usual pleasantries that made gatherings like this feel safe and familiar. I, Amaramiwi, sat near the end of the table, quietly enjoying the rare moment of being surrounded by family. It had been a tough years. At 28, I was still struggling to find stable ground. Evicted from my cramped apartment last month after falling behind on rent. I'd been couch surfing with friends, juggling 3 part-time jobs just to cover student loans and basic expenses. My bank account hovered dangerously low, and the weight of it all pressed on me constantly. But tonight, for once, I could set that aside. It was Thanksgiving, and Nana was back after years overseas. Her presence alone made everything feel a little brighter. Across from me sat my father, Kellen, carving the turkey with practiced precision. My mother, Efena, passed bowls with her usual graceful smile. Beside me was my younger sister, Zenzali, looking as polished as ever in her designer dress. Her husband, Quincy, at her side, chatting animatedly with his parents who had joined us for dinner. And at the head of the table, commanding quiet respect, was Nana Adonia, my grandmother, recently returned from Ethiopia, where she had been overseeing family business interests. She looked elegant in her traditional wrap, her silver hair pulled back neatly, but there was something different about her now, sharper, more unyielding. Years abroad had hardened her edges, or perhaps revealed what had always been there. The conversation had been flowing easily until Nana cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the chatter like a blade. Everyone paused, forks halfway to mouths, as she fixed her gaze directly on me. "Amara," she said calmly, though there was an undercurrent that made my skin prickle. "Answer me. Why is there an elderly couple I do not recognize living in the $1 million lake house I bought for you?" The words hung in the air, absurd and impossible. The lively table froze in an instant. A sharp, hollow clatter rang out as my father dropped the carving knife onto his plate, the metal vibrating against the porcelain. I stopped mid-motion. A forkful of sweet potato pie balanced precariously and slowly looked up. My heart stuttered. Nana's eyes, dark, piercing, moved from me to Zenzali beside me, who had gone rigid, then to my parents. The room felt suddenly colder, the festive warmth evaporating. "Nana, what did you just say?" My voice came out trembling, barely above a whisper. It sounded ridiculous even to me. $1 million lake house? For me? I could barely afford lunch most days, let alone imagine owning property. "Did you not hear me, child?" Nana replied, her tone steady, but laced with something volcanic beneath the surface. "I am talking about the vacation house by the lake, Lakeside Haven, the home I purchased 3 years ago in your name, for your future." I blinked, trying to process. 3 years ago? That was right after my college graduation, when I was drowning in student debt and entry-level job rejections. No one had ever mentioned a house, not once. "Nana, couldn't there be some kind of mistake?" I gathered every ounce of courage to speak, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. "I don't own a house, not a vacation home, not even an apartment. I'm basically homeless right now. I was evicted last month. I've been crashing on friends' couches ever since." The words tumbled out raw and honest. I hadn't planned to admit that here, at this perfect family table. But Nana's question demanded truth. Her eyebrow arched sharply, a twitch that spoke volumes. "What?" She leaned forward slightly. I knew something was wrong. "As soon as I returned, I went to visit the property, to surprise you. You weren't there." Instead, an elderly couple I had never seen before answered the door. They introduced themselves as the parents of Zenzali's husband, Quincy. All eyes shifted to Zenzali. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her hand tremble around her wine glass, the red liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. She was breathing quickly, shallowly, her perfect composure cracking. "Nana!" Zenzali cried out, her voice pitching high, almost a shriek. That must be some misunderstanding." Maybe you went to the wrong address. There are so many similar houses by the lake. And you've just gotten back after years away. Jet lag, exhaustion. It happens. That's right, Mama. My mother jumped in quickly, beads of sweat glistening on her forehead despite the cool room. Your memories might be a bit mixed up. Come on, the turkey's getting cold. Let's eat. Silence. The single word from Nana fell like a hammer, overriding my mother's plea. Despite her age, 78, now her voice carried the authority of someone who had built empires and commanded respect across continents. Everyone flinched, even Quincy. My mind has not failed me yet, Nana continued coldly. The address was exact. The exterior matched perfectly, the one I signed the contract for. Myself. She reached into her large purse, pulled out a photograph, and slid it across the tablecloth with deliberate slowness. It landed in front of me. I stared, my stomach twisting. In the photo stood a stunning lakeside mansion, modern yet rustic, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking shimmering water, a wide wooden deck, manicured gardens leading to a private dock, and smiling proudly in front were Zenzali, Quincy, and his parents, arms linked. This, Nana said, her voice like ice, is what Quincy's parents told me when I asked. We are staying in this home owned by our son's wife, Zenzali. The color drained from Zenzali's face completely. She looked like a ghost. I recognized the house immediately. It was the same one Zenzali had posted on social media months ago. Captioned, "My new vacation getaway, living the dream," with filtered photos of sunsets and lavish interiors. I'd scrolled past it with a pang of envy, wondering how she afforded such luxury on Quincy's mid-level salary while I scraped by. But now, my house, what is happening? I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. My voice rose, cracking with confusion and rising anger. Mama, Daddy, what does this mean? Nana bought me a house? $1 million house? Then why am I living like a nomad? Why am I broke, evicted, hopeless? My father shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. Amara? It's complicated. Today is Thanksgiving. Talking about money at family dinner isn't exactly appropriate, is it? We can sit down tomorrow, in my study, and talk it through properly. No. Nana's voice cut him off like a guillotine. We are clearing this up right here, right now. She turned back to me, her expression softening for the first time, a flicker of pity in her, eyes that vanished quickly. Amara, you truly know nothing about the $1 million vacation home I gifted you 3 years ago, and how it was used? $1 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. My morning bank balance had been $150. After taxes, loans, rent, everything vanished. Working 80-hour weeks, skipping meals, sacrificing sleep. For what? And all this time there had been a house? Security? A future? I know nothing, I whispered, then louder. I've never seen a vacation house. No one ever told me anyone bought one for me. Nana's gaze hardened as it swept to my parents. Kellen, Ifena, you told me 3 years ago that Amara was mentally unstable, incapable of managing large assets until she became independent. That you would act as co-guardians, manage the property in her name. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Wait, when have I ever been mentally unstable? My voice shook with indignation. I graduated valedictorian. Top of my class. I've worked diligently since. 3 jobs now. I've never caused trouble. Not once. Amara, calm down, my mother said in a low, warning tone. No concern, just caution. You're getting worked up, see? This is exactly what we mean by unstable. Don't you dare! I jumped up fully now, my chair toppling backward with a crash. Tears burned my eyes, but rage overpowered them. I am perfectly normal. The ones who are sick are you. When I couldn't pay rent, you told me I wasn't trying hard enough, needed to be independent. Yet behind my back, you gave a house in my name to Zenzali? Amara, how dare you speak to your parents like that? My father slammed his fist on the table, plates rattling. We did it for your own good. You don't have the capacity to manage assets. We entrusted it to Zenzali. For my own good? The absurdity choked me. I couldn't even cry. I was too numb. Oh, shut up already! Zenzali snapped suddenly, her mask fully shattered. A simple, boring woman like you doesn't deserve a house that beautiful anyway. We were just putting it to good use. You should be thanking us. The words stung like acid. This was my sister, blood, speaking. Enough. Nana's voice sliced through the chaos, rising slowly with her cane for support. She walked to me, placing a gentle hand on my trembling shoulder. Warmth spread from her touch, grounding me. Amara is right, she said firmly. All of you are rotten, completely rotten to the core. Mama, that's going too far, my father protested, face twisting. We did everything for the family. There is no family here, Nana replied coldly. Only hyenas feeding on their own. She pulled out her smartphone, pressed a button. Come in, please. Yes, right now. The front door opened. Cold night air rushing in with a suited man. Attorney Sterling. Nana's longtime lawyer, carrying a thick briefcase. The stage was set. The truth was about to unravel everything. The cold night air that had rushed in with Attorney Sterling seemed to linger in the dining room, chasing away what little warmth remained from the Thanksgiving feast. The turkey sat congealed on its platter. The candles flickered low, and the once cheerful table now felt like a courtroom. Attorney Sterling placed his heavy briefcase on the sideboard with a deliberate thud, opened it, and began laying out thick folders of documents like evidence in a trial. My grandmother stood beside me, her hand still resting on my shoulder, steady and strong. I drew strength from that touch. My legs had stopped shaking, but inside a storm was building. For a long moment, no one spoke. My father, mother, and Zenzali stared at the lawyer as though he were a ghost. Quincy looked confused, glancing between his wife and his in-laws, clearly realizing he had walked into something far bigger than a simple family. Disagreement. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and straightened my spine. The tears were still there, threatening to spill again, but I refused to let them. Not now, not in front of them. Then, unexpectedly, a small, quiet laugh escaped my lips. It echoed strangely in the silent room. My mother's head snapped toward me. Amara, why are you laughing? Her voice trembled, uncertain. I let the laugh grow, cold and deliberate, as I pretended to dab at fresh tears with my napkin. When I lowered it, my eyes were dry and sharp. Don't you see? I said, my voice low and steady. We were playing with you. The confusion on their faces was almost satisfying. I continued, without raising my voice, without mercy. A week ago, Nana contacted me. Not through you, not through this house, but directly through Aunt Selimowit. She told me everything she had discovered. That letters she had sent me over the years never arrived. That you had been intercepting them, hiding them, lying to her about my life. From that moment we knew what you had done. My father's face drained of color. He half rose from his chair. What are you? Sit down, Nana said quietly. The command in her tone pinned him back into his seat like a physical force. This is not over yet, she added. In fact, it has only just begun. I nodded to Attorney Sterling. He stepped forward, calm and professional, and slid the first document across the table. Let us start with the forged gift agreement, he said. The handwriting analysis is complete. He opened a folder and placed a real estate registry record in the center for all to see. This property, Lakeside Haven, was originally purchased by Mrs. Adnayaya Mbiwe 3 years ago and titled solely in the name of Amara Miwi. However, the current registered owner is listed as Zenzali Vaughn, her younger sister. The date of transfer is recorded as October 15th, 3 years ago. The sale price, $1. Recorded as a gift, $1. I stared at the date. October, 3 years ago. That was the exact month I had graduated valedictorian, full of hope, armed with glowing recommendations, ready to step into the world. Instead, that was when everything began to fall apart. Job offers mysteriously withdrawn. Credit applications denied. Rent always just out of reach. I spoke quietly, but every word carried. I always thought something was wrong. I made it to final interviews at top firms. I had everything lined up, and yet every single one rejected me at the last minute. No explanation. I fixed my gaze on my father. He looked away. Attorney Sterling produced another document, printouts of emails. Around that same time, he continued, anonymous emails were sent to the human resources departments of those companies. Emails claiming that Amara Miwi suffers from severe mental illness and was a known troublemaker in college. My father's jaw tightened. The IP addresses, I said, trace directly back to this house. The timestamps match the hours you spent locked in your study. Daddy, you sabotaged my career before it even began. Because if I became independent, if I succeeded, you couldn't keep using my name to steal from me. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I turned to my mother. And you, Mama. I finally understand why. No matter how many hours I worked, I never had any money left. Why my credit score kept dropping even though I paid everything on time. Attorney Sterling laid out bank statements, mine and others I had never seen. This is the account Amara used for her student loan payments, he explained. Every month, she deposited money earned from part-time jobs. However, those funds were automatically redirected, not to the loan servicer, but to a hidden account in the name of Ifenamiwi. My mother made a choked sound, her hand flying to her mouth. You told me I wasn't trying hard enough, I said, my voice shaking with remembered pain. You compared me to Zenzali constantly. You made me feel like a failure, but all along you were stealing the money I earned. You destroyed my credit on purpose. You made sure I could never rent an apartment, never build a life. You kept me trapped. Tears welled in her eyes now, but I felt no pity. I turned to Zenzali last. She glared at me, defiant even as sweat beaded on her forehead. Quincy's parents are living in my house, right? I asked. So what if they are? She shot back, chin raised. They retired. They wanted a quiet place by the lake. I let them stay. It's better than leaving it empty. You let them stay, I repeated. For free? Of course. They're family. I nodded to Attorney Sterling. He presented the next set of records, bank transfer statements. These are deposits into an account in the name of Zenzali Vaughn, he said calmly. On the first of every month, $5,000 is transferred from the account of Quincy Vaughn's parents. The memo line reads rent. Nana spoke for the first time in minutes, her voice like thunder wrapped in silk. So not only did you steal Amara's house, Zenzali, you turned it into a source of income. You charged your own in-laws rent to live in property that was never yours. That's not, Zenzali started, then faltered. It was a maintenance fee. The house is huge. Utilities, taxes, upkeep. It's expensive. And they're wealthy. $5,000 a month is nothing to them. That is not the point, I said quietly. You took my house without my knowledge or consent. You lived in luxury, posted photos of your getaway. Threw parties there, while I worked 3 jobs and worried about where I would sleep next week. You made $60,000 a year off my property. Did you ever once think about me? About what I was going through? Zenzali looked away. My father tried one last time to regain control. Yes, maybe the way we handled it was harsh. But look at the result. The house is beautifully maintained. Zenzali's in-laws are happy. It's been put to good use for the family. We can always compensate Amara later. A settlement, some money. We'll make it right. A settlement, Nana repeated softly. The stem of her wine glass creaked in her grip. When my granddaughter was on the verge of sleeping on the street, you were living off her inheritance. And now you think money will fix it? But Mama, my father pleaded, Amara is young. Hardships build character, don't they? She'll bounce back. Shut up, Nana said, and the room fell silent again. She looked at me. There is more. I took a deep breath. I wrote to you every month, Nana. I asked how the house was. If you were happy there. If you needed anything. But I never received a single reply. Instead, Kellen told me you were too unstable to even write a thank you note. I shook my head slowly. Not one letter ever reached me. Of course not, Nana said, turning a withering gaze on my parents. Every letter was addressed here. They told me they would deliver them to you. They claimed you were unwell, that they were protecting you. They tore them up. They blocked your phone number from my contacts. They isolated you completely. The full weight of it settled over me like a shroud. It wasn't distance. It wasn't my fault. It was deliberate cruelty. Enough excuses, I said, signaling Attorney Sterling again. He displayed the transfer agreement. Zenzali had used to claim ownership. A scanned copy projected onto his tablet for all to see. Miss Vaughn, he addressed her directly, you stated earlier that this document represents a legitimate gift from Amara 3 years ago, correct? Yes, Zenzali said quickly, seizing on the lifeline. Look at the date. It's right there. Indeed, Sterling replied. We will address the handwriting shortly. But first, we conducted a digital forensic analysis of the paper itself. He zoomed in on a magnified section. Tiny yellow dots appeared in a grid pattern, almost invisible to the naked eye. This is a machine identification code, he explained. Many color laser printers embed microscopic yellow dots that record the printer's serial number, date, and time of printing. Zenzali's mouth fell open. Analysis of these dots shows this document was printed exactly 6 months ago. The room spun for a moment. 6 months ago, right after. Nana had called my parents and said her work overseas was stabilizing. That she would likely return soon. I smiled coldly. How strange. A contract supposedly signed 3 years ago, printed on paper that didn't exist until 6 months ago. I leaned forward. You panicked, didn't you? Until then, you'd been occupying the house illegally, based only on verbal lies. But once Nana said she was coming back, you knew the truth would come out. So you rushed to create fake evidence. You forged my signature, backdated it, Zenzali. You copied my handwriting perfectly, didn't you? My father groaned, head in his hands. That panic, I continued, is what undid you. You were sloppy. You used a modern printer. You didn't think anyone would check. Attorney Sterling delivered the final blow. Handwriting analysis confirms a 99% match to Zenzali, Vaughn's own writing. This is clear forgery of a private document. Additionally, false representation, as Amara's guardian to withdraw funds, constitutes fraud and embezzlement. Zenzali began to shake. No. Daddy, say something! You told me to do it! You said as long as we backdated it, no one would know. Idiot. My father roared. Shut your mouth. But it was too late. The police have already been notified, Attorney Sterling said calmly. Criminal charges will be filed immediately. Zenzali collapsed forward, sobbing uncontrollably. My parents turned on each other in desperation, voices overlapping in blame and excuses. The facade of family unity shattered completely. Nana watched them with icy contempt. Enough! She commanded, and the shouting stopped as if cut by a knife. I have seen all the ugliness I need to see. Do not stain this house further. She turned to Attorney Sterling. The revision of my will is complete? Yes, Mrs. Mbiwe. He produced a final sealed document. This revokes all inheritance rights of Kellen Miwi, Efena Miwi, Zenzali Vaughn, and her spouse Quincy Vaughn. It designates Amara Miwi as sole heir to the entire estate. My parents cried out in unison. Pleas tumbled from their mouths, apologies, promises, tears. But beneath it all, I still heard the same assumption, that blood would make me forgive. I lifted my wine glass, took a slow sip, and smiled. No, I said softly. I have no mercy for you. Only an invoice. Attorney Sterling handed me the last document. This is a demand for restitution of unjust enrichment over 3 years, plus damages for emotional distress. Total, $2 million. Payment due tomorrow or criminal proceedings begin immediately. My father gasped. $2 million? We don't have... Then sell everything, I said. This house, your cars, your jewelry, and Lakeside Haven. Evict Quincy's parents tomorrow. Zenzali wailed from the floor. A loud knock sounded at the door. 2 sheriff's deputies entered. Zenzali Vaughn, one said. You are under arrest. As they handcuffed her, then my parents, the room filled with sobs and denials. My mother reached out to me one last time. Amara, please. Goodbye, Mama, I said, meeting her eyes without flinching. You'll have plenty of time to count your regrets in prison. The sirens faded into the night. Only Nana, Attorney Sterling, and I remained among the ruins of the feast. I exhaled, a long, trembling breath that felt like releasing years of poison. It's over, Nana, I whispered. She pulled me into a fierce hug. No, my brave girl, this is where your real life begins. The dining room felt cavernously empty after the deputies led Zenzali, my mother and my father away in handcuffs. The echo of their pleas still lingered in the air like smoke from a dying fire. But the sirens had long since faded into the cold November night. Attorney Sterling quietly gathered his documents, stacking them back into his briefcase with methodical precision. He nodded to Nana and me, a small, professional smile of closure on his face. I will file the formal charges first thing in the morning, he said. The forgery, fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft counts are airtight. The restraining orders will be served tonight. You won't hear from them directly again. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, Nana replied, her voice steady but softer now that the storm had passed. You've done more than legal work tonight. You've helped restore justice. He inclined his head respectfully and left, the front door closing with a gentle click that somehow sounded final. Nana and I stood there for a long moment, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been meant to be a joyful Thanksgiving. Half-eaten plates, overturned glasses, crumpled napkins. It looked like the aftermath of a battle. In a way, it was. I sank into the nearest chair, my legs finally giving out. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was draining away, leaving me trembling and hollow. Nana eased herself into the seat beside me, setting her cane aside. She reached for my hand and squeezed it tightly. You were magnificent, Amara, she said quietly. I have never been prouder. I tried to smile, but it came out shaky. I was terrified the whole time. I thought my heart would burst. Terrified, but brave, she corrected. There is a difference. You spoke truth to power tonight. You did not flinch when they tried to make you small again. Tears finally came then, not the hot. Angry ones from earlier, but quiet. Exhausted ones of relief. Nana pulled me into her arms, and I let myself be held like a child. Breathing in the familiar scent of her lavender soap and the faint spice of Ethiopian coffee that always seemed to cling to her clothes. We sat like that until the candles burned low. Eventually she pulled back and brushed a tear from my cheek. Come, she said. We will not sleep here tonight. This house is tainted now. Pack a small bag. We will stay at the lake house, your lake house, starting tonight. The word "your" sent a jolt through me. It still didn't feel real. Within an hour we were in Nana's chauffeured car, gliding through the dark streets toward Lakeside Haven. I stared out the window, watching familiar city lights give way to quieter suburbs, then to winding country roads lined with bare winter trees. My phone buzzed incessantly, texts from cousins, aunts, uncles, all asking what had happened, some expressing shock, others thinly veiled curiosity. I silenced it. Tonight I wasn't ready to explain. When we turned onto the private drive leading to the lake, my breath caught. Even in the darkness, the house was breathtaking. Soft exterior lights illuminated the modern timber and glass facade, reflecting off the still water like scattered stars. The wooden deck wrapped around the entire lower level, promising endless mornings with coffee and sunrise views. Nana had kept the keys from her earlier visit. We stepped inside, and the motion sensor lights came on gently, revealing an open-plan interior that was both luxurious and warm. High vaulted ceilings with exposed beams, a massive stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the black expanse of the lake. Everything smelled faintly of cedar and fresh paint. It was pristine, well-maintained, loved even, and stolen. I walked slowly through the main floor, trailing my fingers over the buttery leather sectional, the granite kitchen island large enough for a dozen people, the built-in bookshelves waiting to be filled. Upstairs there were 4 bedrooms, each with its own ensuite and lake views. The master, my master, had a private balcony and a bathroom with a soaking tub big enough for 2. Quincy's parents had clearly made themselves at home. Family photos of them with Zenzali and Quincy lined the mantel. Their clothes hung in the closets. A half-finished jigsaw puzzle sat on the coffee table. It felt invasive, seeing strangers' lives overlaid on what should have been mine. Nana watched me silently, letting me absorb it all. It's beautiful, I whispered finally. It is yours, she replied simply. Always was. We slept in guest rooms that night, neither of us willing to displace the intruders. Things just yet. I lay awake for hours, listening to the gentle lap of water against the dock, trying to reconcile the luxury around me with the memory of sleeping on friends. Lumpy couches only weeks ago. The next morning, Black Friday for the rest of the world, Judgment Day for others, dawned cold and crystalline. Sunlight poured through the windows, turning the lake into a sheet of molten gold. Nana and I drank coffee on the deck, wrapped in blankets, watching mist rise off the water. Attorney Sterling called at 9 sharp. The eviction notice has been served, he reported. Quincy's parents have 72 hours to vacate. A sheriff will accompany the movers on Monday morning if they haven't complied. The locks will be changed this afternoon. Good, Nana said. There's more. Quincy Vaughn has filed for divorce from Zenzali. He's claiming he had no knowledge of the fraud and is cooperating fully to avoid charges. His parents are distraught. They're claiming victim status, saying Zenzali told them the house was hers outright. I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Let them scramble. By noon, the locksmith arrived and replaced every exterior lock. New keys, my keys, gleamed in my palm like small promises. That afternoon, a moving company came to box up Quincy's parents' belongings. I didn't watch. Instead, Nana and I drove into town and bought cleaning supplies, fresh linens and groceries. When we returned, the house was empty of their things, though traces remained, scuff marks on the walls. A forgotten sweater in a drawer. We cleaned together. Not because we had to, Nana could have hired a service, but because we wanted to. We scrubbed away their presence, reclaimed every inch. I wiped down the kitchen counters where Zenzali had posed for Instagram photos, vacuumed the rugs where Quincy's parents had walked as if they owned the place. With every swipe of the rag, I felt layers of resentment sloughing off. By evening, the house smelled of lemon cleaner and the rosemary chicken we roasted for dinner. We ate at the island, laughing over small things. How Nana couldn't work the complicated coffee machine. How I burned the first batch of garlic bread. Normal things. Family things. Over the next days, the consequences rippled outward. Zenzali's social media went dark after one frantic post, hinting at family betrayal that was quickly deleted. Friends told me her in-laws were furious, not just at losing the house, but at paying $5,000 a month for 3 years only to discover it was stolen property. They threatened to sue her separately. Quincy moved out of the apartment he shared with Zenzali and into a hotel. Rumor had it he was liquidating assets to pay legal fees. My parents' house, the one I'd grown up in, went on the market within a week. A for sale sign appeared in the yard like a white flag of surrender. Their cars vanished from the driveway. Relatives who once fawned over them now avoided their calls. I didn't reach out. I didn't need to. Nana stayed with me at the lake house through December. We decorated for Christmas, not extravagantly but meaningfully. A real tree by the fireplace, strings of warm white lights along the deck railing, handmade ornaments from my childhood that Nana had saved. On Christmas Eve, we sat by the fire drinking hot chocolate spiked with Baileys, talking until dawn. She told me stories I'd never heard about her own struggles as a young widow building the family business, about the discrimination she'd faced, about the fierce love that made her protect what was hers. "You are more like me than you know," she said, eyes shining in the firelight. "Stronger than they ever gave you credit for." In quiet moments, I walked the property alone. 20 acres of wooded waterfront, a private dock with a small boathouse, trails leading to hidden coves. It wasn't just a house. It was freedom, security, a future I could shape myself. One afternoon, I found a locked metal box in the master closet, something Quincy's parents had overlooked. Inside were property tax records, maintenance invoices, utility bills, all paid from an account in my name that I had never known existed. Thousands of dollars siphoned over the years. More evidence for the civil suit. I added it to the pile Attorney Sterling was building. By New Year's Eve, the 72-hour eviction deadline had passed. Quincy's parents had vacated on time, leaving behind a curt note claiming emotional distress and demanding compensation. Sterling laughed when I showed it to him. "They'll be lucky to avoid accomplice charges," he said. That night, Nana and I stood on the deck watching fireworks burst over the frozen lake, distant, displays from neighboring towns painting the sky in bursts of color. The air was crisp, the stars impossibly bright. "To new beginnings," Nana toasted with champagne. "To justice," I replied. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in years, I felt truly deeply at peace. The house was mine. The future was mine, and no one would ever take it from me again. January slid into February with a quiet gentleness that felt almost foreign to me. Snow blanketed the grounds of Lakeside Haven, turning the woods into a hushed white cathedral and the lake into a vast sheet of frosted glass. Mornings began with the soft crunch of my boots on the deck as I carried coffee outside, watching deer pick their way along the shoreline. The silence was profound. No traffic. No neighbors' arguments through thin apartment walls. No late-night worries about where I would sleep next. Just the wind in the pines and the occasional call of a loon. For the first time in my adult life, I was safe. Nana returned to the city after New Year's to oversee the final revisions to her estate and to handle pressing business matters. But she came back every weekend without fail. She would arrive Friday evening with a suitcase of home-cooked injera, Shiro and Doro wait, insisting that a house this beautiful needs to smell like family. We would spend Saturdays walking the property trails, planning small improvements, a vegetable garden in spring, a fire pit nearer the water, bookshelves built into the alcove by the fireplace. Sundays were for long conversations over tea, where she taught me the intricacies of the family investments she was gradually transferring into my name. "You are not just inheriting money, Amara," she told me one afternoon as we sat in the sunroom watching snow swirl outside. "You are inheriting responsibility. Wealth without purpose rots the soul. Find your purpose." I had already begun to find it. The idea came to me one sleepless night in early January, when old anger resurfaced as memories of couch surfing and skipped meals. I opened my laptop and started typing, not a journal entry, but a raw, honest account of everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fraud, the years of gaslighting. The moment the trap snapped shut on Thanksgiving night, I wrote without filtering, pouring out the pain I had carried alone for so long. When I finished, the document was 20 pages long. I stared at it for a long time, then created a simple website on a free platform and posted it anonymously under the title, How My Family Stole My Future and How I Took It Back. I shared the link in a small online community for financial abuse survivors. I did not expect much, maybe a handful of sympathetic comments. By morning, the post had been shared hundreds of times. Messages poured into the anonymous contact form. Women who had been cut out of inheritances by brothers, adult children whose parents had drained their trust funds, people whose credit had been destroyed by relatives with access to their information. They wrote things like, "This is my story too," and I thought I was alone, and how? Did you fight back? I answered every single one. Within a week, the website crashed from traffic. A tech-savvy friend from college helped me move it to a proper domain, reclaimedfutures.com, and set up secure email. I added resources, links to legal aid organizations, credit repair guides, sample demand letters. I began writing weekly articles about spotting financial abuse, protecting assets, rebuilding after identity theft. By mid-February, I had my first paying client. She was a 34-year-old teacher from Ohio, whose mother had taken out credit cards in her name while she was in college. The debt had followed her for 12 years, blocking her from buying a home, even from getting a better phone plan. We met over Zoom. I listened to her story for an hour without interrupting, then laid out a step-by-step plan: dispute the accounts, file police reports, sue for identity theft, negotiate settlements. 3 months later, she emailed me a photo of the keys to her new house. She paid me $2,000, more than I had earned in a month at any of my old part-time jobs. Word spread quickly in survivor networks. Soon I had a waiting list. I raised my rates, hired a part-time virtual assistant to handle scheduling, and registered an LLC, Reclaimed Futures Consulting. I specialized in financial recovery for victims of intra-family fraud and abuse because no one else did. The irony was not lost on me. My family had tried to destroy my financial life to keep me dependent. Instead, they had given me expertise no business school could teach. Spring arrived early that year. Crocuses pushed through melting snow along the lake path, and the ice on the water cracked with deep, resonant booms that echoed like distant thunder. I launched one-on-one coaching packages and a group program called Rebuild Stronger. Enrollment filled in days. I created downloadable toolkits, credit repair timelines, scripts for confronting abusers, templates for civil demands. Revenue climbed steadily, 5 figures, then 6. I reinvested most of it. I hired a web designer to give the site a professional look, a CPA to manage taxes, a lawyer, not Sterling, he was Nana's, who specialized in victim advocacy. I set up a scholarship fund within the business, full coaching free for anyone earning under $30,000 a year. Nana watched it all with quiet pride. "You turned pain into power," she said one May evening as we grilled fish on the new deck. "That is the rarest alchemy." I laughed. "I just got tired of seeing other people suffer the way I did." "That," she replied, "is exactly what makes it alchemy." By summer, Reclaimed Futures was booking clients 6 months out. I raised prices again and hired 2 more coaches, both former clients whose lives I had helped turn around. We met weekly over video, sharing strategies, celebrating wins. One of them, a woman named Maya who had escaped a financially controlling husband, became my right hand. She handled operations so I could focus on the parts I loved: strategy sessions, writing, speaking, because the speaking requests had started coming in. First it was podcasts, small ones about personal finance and recovery. Then larger ones. A producer from a national morning show reached out after one episode went viral. I flew to New York, my first time on a plane in years, and sat under bright studio lights telling my story to millions. I did not name my family on air, but I did not hide the truth either. After the segment aired, my inbox exploded. The waitlist doubled overnight. I said yes to conferences, to webinars, to panels on financial abuse and women's economic empowerment. I learned to command stages the way Nana commanded boardrooms, with calm authority and unapologetic truth. Real money began to flow. I paid off my student loans in one lump sum, an act that felt like cutting the last chain. They had wrapped around me. I opened investment accounts, bought index funds, set up retirement contributions. I met with Nana's financial advisors and learned to read balance sheets, to understand trusts and tax strategies. And still, I kept the house simple. I furnished it slowly, deliberately, pieces that meant something. A dining table hand-carved from reclaimed wood. Bookshelves filled with finance texts and Ethiopian poetry. Art from local women artists on the walls. The master bedroom became my sanctuary. A king bed with linen sheets. A reading chair by the window. Plants trailing from the balcony. On weekends when I wasn't traveling, I unplugged. I kayaked the lake at dawn, practiced yoga on the dock, cooked elaborate meals just because I could. Friends came to visit, real friends, the ones who had let me crash on their couches, and we sat around the fire pit late into the night, laughing until our sides hurt. I dated cautiously. A kind architect I met at a conference in Chicago, a funny nonprofit director from Toronto. Nothing serious yet, but the possibility felt good. I was no longer desperate for rescue. I was choosing. 1 year after that fateful Thanksgiving, I stood on the deck watching the leaves turn early gold. My business had generated more in 12 months than I once thought possible in a decade. Reclaimed Futures employed 5 people, served hundreds of clients, and had paid out over $50,000 in scholarships. I was financially independent, truly, deeply independent, for the first time in my life. Nana arrived that afternoon with a bottle of Tej and a thick envelope. "Open it," she said, eyes twinkling. Inside was the finalized deed to Lakeside Haven, transferred solely to me, free of any trust or guardianship. And beneath it, a new will, leaving everything to me and to a foundation I would create in her name. I hugged her so tightly she laughed and pretended to protest. "You earned this," she whispered into my hair. "Not because you are my granddaughter, but because you are you." That night we sat by the fireplace, flames dancing over the logs, and I told her about the next step I had been planning for months. "I want to expand," I said. "Not just coaching, a full resource center, free legal clinics, credit repair partnerships, emergency grants for people fleeing abusive situations. A place where survivors can come, maybe even here, retreats on the property, somewhere safe to heal and rebuild." Nana smiled slowly. "Then build it, my love. The world needs more places like this, and more women like you." I leaned my head on her shoulder and watched the fire. The girl who once checked her bank account with dread was gone. In her place stood a woman who had taken devastation and forged it into something unbreakable. This house, this life, was no longer just reclaimed. It was thriving. 2 years have passed since that Thanksgiving night when everything shattered and, in the breaking, became whole. It is late summer now, the kind of perfect August evening where the air smells of warm pine and sun-baked earth. The lake lies mirror still, reflecting a sky painted in lavender and rose. Fairy lights strung along the deck, railing glow softly as guests begin to arrive for the annual Reclaimed Futures retreat, the event I have hosted every year since the business outgrew online-only work. Lakeside Haven has changed, yet it is still unmistakably mine. The house itself remains the same elegant blend of timber and glass, but the grounds have blossomed into something more. A cedar pavilion stands near the water for group workshops. A gravel path winds through wildflower meadows to a circle of Adirondack. Chairs around a stone fire pit. A small guest cottage, built last spring, offers private lodging for scholarship, recipients who travel from across the country. Vegetable beds burst with tomatoes, basil, and zucchini that we harvest for communal meals. Every addition was deliberate, funded by the business, designed to make this place not just a home, but a sanctuary. Tonight, 40 women have come, some driving hours, some flying in from as far as California and Alaska. They are survivors of financial abuse, daughters cheated out of inheritances, wives drained by controlling husbands, sisters whose identities were stolen by siblings. They arrive nervous, clutching suitcases and stories they have never told aloud. By the end of the weekend, they will leave lighter, armed with plans, resources, and the knowledge that they are not alone. I stand on the deck, greeting them as they step out of cars and ride shares. Maya, now my full partner in the business, handles check-ins with her warm, steady smile. Our team of coaches circulates with trays of iced hibiscus tea and fresh fruit. Music, soft Ethiopian jazz mixed with contemporary soul, plays from hidden speakers. Nana arrives last, as always, in her chauffeur town car. At 81, she moves a little slower, leans a little more on her cane, but her eyes are as sharp and commanding as ever. She wears a flowing white dress embroidered with traditional patterns, and every woman here knows who she is, the matriarch who made this weekend possible with her initial seed grant and her unwavering belief. She embraces me tightly. "Look what you have built, Amara." "We built," I correct gently. She waves a hand. "I gave money. You gave heart. There is no comparison." Dinner is served family style on long tables set up under string lights. Grilled lake trout, roasted vegetables from the garden, injera with lentil stew for those who want a taste of home. Laughter rises in waves. Stories are shared cautiously at first, then freely. One woman cries as she admits she finally froze her cheating brothers' access to her accounts. Another announces she closed on her first house last month. Cheers erupt each time someone claims a victory, no matter how small. After dinner, we gather around the fire pit. I open the circle the way I always do. "This place," I say, gesturing to the house behind us, its windows glowing warmly, "was stolen from me for 3 years. My own family locked me out of the future my grandmother intended for me. They told me I was unstable, unworthy, incapable. They made me homeless while they lived here." A few newcomers gasp. Most have heard the story before. But this house never stopped being mine, and neither did my future. I took it back, not just the deed, but the life they tried to deny me. Tonight we are all here to do the same, to take back what was stolen, to declare, out loud, "This is my home. This is my life. This is my future." We go around the circle. One by one, each woman stands and speaks her declaration. "This is my money. This is my credit. This is my peace. This is my power." By the time the last voice fades, the moon has risen high over the lake, silvering everything it touches. Tears streak many faces, but they are tears of release, of fierce joy. Later, when the guests have retreated to bedrooms and the cottage, Nana and I sit alone on the dock, our feet dangling above the water. Crickets sing in the reeds. A fish jumps, sending ripples across the moon's reflection. "Do you ever hear from them?" she asks quietly. She rarely brings them up anymore. I shake my head. "Not directly. The restraining orders are still in place. I know the broad strokes from public records and the occasional update from Attorney Sterling. Zenzali served 22 months of her 3-year sentence, released early for good behavior. She lives in a small studio apartment in another state, works 2 low-wage jobs, and has never tried to contact me. Quincy finalized the divorce within months. He remarried last year. His parents sold their primary home to cover legal fees and moved to a retirement community in Florida. They never acknowledged me, not even with an apology. My parents pleaded down to lesser charges to avoid trial. They lost the family home, the business my father had run for decades. Every asset that wasn't protected. They rent a 1-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city now. I heard my mother took a cashier job. My father's health has declined. Relatives say they speak of me sometimes, with bitterness, with regret, with whatever narrative lets them sleep. I do not know, and I do not need to know. I forgave nothing. I simply stopped carrying them. Nana reaches over and takes my hand. "You did not just survive them, Amara. You outgrew them entirely." I smile into the darkness. "Because of you." "No," she says firmly. "Because of you. I only reminded you who you already were." We sit in companionable silence until the air grows cool. Then we walk back up the path to the house, my house, its windows still lit with the soft glow of women reclaiming their lives. Inside, I check on a few late-night conversations in the living room, refill water pitchers, turn off unnecessary lights. When the house finally settles into quiet, I climb the stairs to the master bedroom. The French doors to the balcony stand open. A warm breeze carries the scent of lake water and night-blooming flowers. I step outside and lean against the railing, looking over everything I have built. Reclaimed Futures is now a 7-figure enterprise. We employ 12 full-time staff, run retreats 4 times a year, fund emergency grants that have helped over 200 women escape abusive situations. We partner with banks for special credit repair programs, with law schools for pro bono clinics, with shelters nationwide. My coaches and I have testified before congressional committees on financial abuse legislation. A book deal is in negotiation. My story, and the stories of dozens of clients who entrusted me with their truths. And still, this house remains the heart of it all. I no longer work 3 jobs. I no longer fear eviction. I no longer doubt my worth. I am 30 now, older than I was when the theft began. Younger than I will be when this work continues long after me. I have created a legacy that no one can forge. No one can steal, no one can undermine. Nana was right that night 2 years ago. This is not the end. This is where my real life began. And standing here under a sky full of stars, with the gentle lap of water below and the quiet breathing of healing women inside, I know the deepest truth of all. This is my home, the place I protect, the place I love, the place I share. I am happy. From the bottom of my heart, I am happy.